Technologies I'm learning in 2023. A backend technology is anything used server-side to build stable and efficient web architectures. Back-end technologies include programming languages, databases, communication mechanisms, or frameworks that make up the building blocks of a web application's back-end. In other words, we're talking about any kind of tech that helps you, as a back-end developer, build or maintain the back-end of a website. Even established back-end developers need to constantly keep up to date with the best back-end technologies of the day. You never know what a new company will use to maintain its back-end, or if the company will require a migration from an older product to something more modern. You may even get the chance to create a new project and select a back-end technology yourself. As technology moves so fast in this field, it's beneficial for your development as a back-end dev to be familiar with the most useful and most used back-end technologies today. Here are the top 22 back-end technologies you should be familiar with. Top 8 back-end languages. 1. Go. Go is the fastest growing and most desired back-end language, used by companies like Uber, YouTube, and Spotify. Back-end developers like it because it's super safe to use, it's incredibly simple to pick up, and it's fast. 2. Python. Python is the most popular back-end programming language for beginners. It has a simple and limited syntax, which makes it easy to read and write. Its immense number of libraries makes it incredibly versatile. Companies like Airbnb, SpaceX, and Stripe rely on Python to maintain their backends. 3. JavaScript. JavaScript is the most popular backend language for all developers, though it's mostly used for front-end dev. However, its frameworks like Node.js make it a popular choice for backend developers too. Companies like Facebook, Google, and eBay use JavaScript. 4. Rust. Rust is a newbie on the backend development scene, but it's the most beloved language for the 7th year running, ever since its inception. It's open source, it has rich libraries, and it's one of the fastest languages around. Meta is notable for being quick to jump on the Rust bandwagon, having used it since 2016. Oz also uses it to write infrastructure-level networking. 5. Java. This is a legacy backend language. It's the safe bet, unpopular with newbies but so entrenched in so many companies' backends that it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Companies like Google, Netflix, Uber, and Facebook all still rely on it. It may not be the top choice in the future, but for now, it's good to be familiar with it. 6. PHP. Nobody, literally just 2% of Stack Overflow survey respondents, wants to learn PHP. But it's on 75% of websites today. Like Java, it's not the best or sexiest language, but it's worth knowing. Meta in particular has used it to develop Facebook's backend since 2004. Slack uses PHP to streamline web request time. 7. Ruby. Want money? Learn Ruby. Thanks to the Ruby on Rails framework, Ruby backend developers command a hefty salary. However, it's still pretty niche among other languages like JavaScript. Currently, companies like Crunchbase and Etsy use Ruby on Rails to develop and maintain their backends. 8. SQL. Gotcha. SQL isn't a programming language like the other 7. But it's, as we'll get into below, a very useful and popular query language. Backend developers often use SQL to communicate between relational databases. It's hard to find a company that wouldn't find SQL knowledge useful, so count this as a must-know language to be hired. Top 6 back-end SQL databases. Okay, we've covered coding languages. Now onto databases. A SQL database is a relational database, which means that it stores data in tables that are related to one another. Think rows and columns. Relational databases usually scale vertically. Data lives on a single server, and you can scale by adding more computer power, like CPU, GPU, and RAM, to that one server. Top is subjective, but I'm somewhat data-driven. These are the top backend SQL databases as defined by Stack Overflow's tremendous annual developer survey. 1. PostgreSQL. PostgreSQL is the gold standard when it comes to open-source, professional-grade SQL databases. It's used more by professionals, 46.5% pros versus 25.5% learning to code. Unlike MySQL, it's seen as the go-to database for production, high-volume data operations. It doesn't just store data, it lets you define data types, index types, and functional languages. Plus, it is fully open source and very customizable. It's used by a long laundry list of companies including, but not limited to, Apple, Biopharm, Cisco, Etsy, Facebook, Instagram, Skype, and Spotify. 2. SQLite. However, the trade-off is that it only supports a limited set of data types: blob, integer, null, text, and real. It's also not good for multiple users, it's not very scalable, and it's not optimized for performance. For all that, it's the most widely deployed database in the world because it's so lightweight. It's also totally free to use and open source, though you can opt to pay for support with a professional license. 3. MySQL. MySQL is the standard SQL database. It's the most used database overall, with 46.85% of Stack Overflow respondents using it. It's a decent fit for many projects. They are very similar technologies, but many developers agree with me that Postgres is simply the more modern solution. It used to be fully open source but was acquired by Oracle a while back. Oracle distributes it under a dual license. You can use the OS version if you like, but if you work at a company that doesn't want its MySQL-based product to be OS as well, you'll have to pay for a license. 4. MariaDB. MariaDB is used by a smaller percentage of developers, just 17.9%. It has an interesting history. Back when Oracle was acquiring MySQL, a bunch of developers got worried about what that would mean for one of the most relied upon SQL databases. MariaDB is a fork of MySQL and fully open source, licensed under GPL, which has very few limitations for academic, commercial, or personal use. Oracle is a company that owns both the enterprise Oracle database as well as the partially open source MySQL. Used by just 11.5% of developers, it's not as customizable as MySQL, but it is better for a higher degree of scalability. It's not set up to do whatever you want, it's set up to do a few limited things with larger databases and more interactions, and with a larger concurrency pool than MySQL. It's also more secure. 6. Microsoft SQL Server. Also referred to as MSSQL, this SQL database is used by 26.7% of Stack Overflow survey respondents. As the name gives away, this database was developed by Microsoft, so it's not OS. You need licenses to run it. This database is primarily used with .NET. As you might imagine, it's better for Windows-based projects that gel well with Microsoft products. It's more secure than MySQL. Of course, Microsoft itself uses MSSQL, but other notable companies like Accenture and Costco use it as well. If you're a backend developer, you may be slightly overwhelmed with this extensive, and yet not even exhaustive, list of the top backend technologies. Remember, you don't have to know all of them. But it's worth being familiar with one or two from each list so you can make an informed decisions when applying to jobs, or when choosing a new backend technology to use. Like Google, Amazon is starting to get into the habit of just building the services they need to make their business a success. SQS stands for Simple Queue Service. It's a sub message broker system. This list of backend languages, SQL databases, NoSQL databases, and message queues will go a long way toward getting you well versed in the most important backend technologies you should be familiar with in 2023. Like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel.